As much as we would love to feel the Spirit all the time, there are certainly those moments that make us question when we're not receiving answers to prayer and when it feels like heaven is silent. Can you relate to that?
If so, join us today on another episode of Go and Be, where we talk to Michael McLean and we hear about his faith journey. What happens when heaven is silent? Join us on Go and Be.
Sweet Salt. Save 15% at Siegel Book and SweetSaltClothing.com.
Hi, and welcome to Go and Be. I'm your host, Christie Gardiner, joined by our host, Michelle McCullough. And today's guest on Go and Be needs no introduction. We have the amazing, the wonderful Michael McLean.
On today's show, we are going to be talking about faith journeys and how we have different aspects of time that mark how we feel about Heavenly Father, about Jesus Christ, but then also how those moments inspire us to do our life's work. And Michael McLean is a great person for that. So we'd love to start by having you share with us what is something that happened to you early on that helped you know what your life's mission would be.
I was living in Chicago. I was living in Chicago in high school, my first 3 years, and I was the only, I think there were 2 members of the church in my high school. And I went down to get, when I was 16, my patriarchal blessing. Most of you know what a patriarchal blessing is, but this special thing for me where a man puts his hands on my head and gives me some insights that could inspire me to do the very thing. What's my dharma? What's my purpose? What's my meaning? So I went down and I got my patriarchal blessing and waited anxiously, because you kind of can't hear it when you're receiving it, especially when you're 16.
Sure.
So I get home, and weeks later, John K. Edmonds, who gave the blessing, and he was kind of a poet. He ended up becoming the president of the Salt Lake Temple for a while after he left Illinois. And I was reading it, and it reads like poetry. And it's so beautiful, but the thing I wanted to happen is I wanted the patriarchal blessing to be like tarot cards. Just tell me what to do.
Yes.
You're meant to be this, do this, and here's the 5 things on the list, and tell me what color of hair my wife's gonna have, how many children we will have, and how I'm gonna live happily. I mean, I wanted that.
Sure.
So here's what I got. And I won't quote it all, but I start reading my blessing, beautifully written, and then it gets to the part that matters for me. And he says, you have a mission. And I thought, here it comes.
Here it comes.
I can't wait to hear what it is. And it started to say, not exactly what it was, but what it was supposed to be. And it said, the most important thing you do in your life is to discover what you were sent here to do. No.
I'm sorry.
Back. I want you to tell me what I'm supposed to do. No. And then it starts giving some hints that at 16 you don't really fully understand. But I started reading this and I thought, wow. And here's some of the things that are going to happen because of your mission. And it led me to start to think, how do I interpret this? And so that question had become the obsession of my life. It says that what we're sent here to do is really important, and it will have an impact on the world. At 16, you think, do I get to be Billy Joel? Am I going to be the Beatles? Am I going to be a general authority for my church? What does it mean? And the good thing about not knowing, but being told, you'll be guided, the Spirit will impress you, you'll have gifts that can be used. But every day that I woke up and said my prayers, how long ago was that? 52 years ago? Same prayer. Am I doing today, this instant, what you want me to do? After Michelle called and said, you want to come do the interview, I did what I have done for 52 years. Is this a good idea? And I learned something really interesting early on. And that was, I suffer from, we talked about this earlier, from clinical depression. So my default position for myself is worthlessness. Mm-hmm. And that if I work hard enough, I can overcome and compensate for my yuckiness.
If you hustle enough.
Yeah, oh man, if I work hard enough. Mm-hmm. And I started to think, what have I got to do? And I did some things that I thought would get me, I wanted heaven to open up. I wanted, like from a Monty Python movie, I wanted the voice of God to say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. And then I would know I was okay. And so I started to, I went to South Africa on my mission, and we were in a band, and we had some amazing successes. I felt good about it, but it was no well done. I came back, I became the producer of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir when they called it the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. And I made this film with Jimmy Stewart called Mr. Kruger's Christmas. Actually, 40 years ago, this month was the first time it was presented. And I had a chance. I spent 3 years trying to sell the church on the idea, and I had, 40 years ago, I got a chance to stand alone in front of the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 for 35 minutes. And I pitched my show. And they gave me the approval, and I produced it. I figured out how to hire my hero, Jimmy Stewart, to be the star. And we made this movie that went on to be seen by over 300 million people in 11 languages. And I wanted... How about that, Jesus? Were you impressed? And nothing. And I thought, man, this guy's a tough hustle. How do you impress Jesus? How do you have him say, not just well done, I think this is so embarrassing, but I kind of wanted him to say, great, you're my favorite.
Don't we all?
I love those other people. They're all lovely and they can come into the kingdom. But you've got the mission, and it's only your mission that really matters. And so I started to begin that process to figure out, and then life hit me. Mm-hmm. And I started to figure out maybe what I thought was the mission. Wait a minute, what if that isn't the mission? What if all the ways that I thought I was supposed to show up, particularly as a dad, what if the ways that you were devoted to following the prescription fail? What if you are the guy at Bonneville who's making commercials about how to be a great dad, and your kids tell you, not so much? Then suddenly everything changes and you think, what if I have to humble up enough to say, I haven't lived authentically what the truth is. I have been devoted to what somebody told me the truth was. Mm-hmm. So when people talk about faith crises, and even on the internet I'll say, what to do when people question or challenge, and I think, do not think of this as a problem.
Exactly.
The best thing you can possibly do is to say, do I believe in Jesus? Yeah. Or do I believe in the Dieter Uchtdorf Jesus? No. I like the David Bednar Jesus. I mean, when you think about our tribe, and I love all these people who guide us, but the question is, do I have an experience with God Almighty? Have I felt Him? Have I experienced Him? And how is that going to change me? Or am I beating myself up because I didn't become a version of a Christian that I was told that it was supposed to be? And not that those things that they tell us aren't worth considering. But when you have a faith crisis, and I went through a 9-year-long process of not getting any answered prayers. 9 years. And I thought God owed me. I thought I could...
Look at what you've done.
What more do you want from me? I got missionaries. I made films. I did songs. I did the thing. I want you to say, you're the greatest. What do you need? So that when my son came out and told me how he felt I had essentially lied to him about being gay because I said the party line about this is the way, this is all a choice. Well, he says, Dad, that's not my experience. Not a choice at all. This is what I'm struggling with, and this is how I think I was invisible to you. And here are all the things. I'd go out and sing with you, and you'd bear your testimony, and gosh, Dad, you're good at that for everybody else. But you weren't good at that for me. And basically, we have no relationship. It's all been based on fraud. And you're the worst thing that ever happened to me. And P.S., can you help me kind of get my name off the records of the church? So my position then became not, oh, how do we save him from being gay?
Right.
He's fallen in love with this guy that he was on the road with, and he wants to get married, and there were only, I think, 4 states at the time you were legally allowed to get married. How do I fix it or stop it or change it? No. The question was, I don't have a relationship with my son. So tell me how to have, I mean, it's like going to the patriarch. Just tell me what to do to fix this or to help him. He feels abandoned. He was trying to kill himself. He became addicted to drugs in an effort to escape everything that I thought was at the core of this is the way you raise your children. This is the way you bless them. This is the way you do what your ultimate mission in blessing your family is all about. And all the things I did failed. So the question then becomes, did I fail? Did all the things I thought about you, and speaking of heaven, did all the things I thought were inspirations from you, were they bunk? Do I throw out the baby with the bathwater? How do I rescue? It was impossible, and the only way forward for me was to have the God who had answered so many of my prayers so beautifully answer mine. And then nothing.
For 9 years.
For 9 years. And I think, you can't do that to me. I did the stuff. You owe me. This is so fun. Don't you understand? You owe me. And you start thinking of all the things maybe you offended the Spirit somehow. It's probably your fault. If things aren't working out, you must not have enough faith. And so I'm frustrated and I'm hurt and I'm doubling my fasting hours and I'm paying my tithing and then giving
Doing
a little.
it all.
I'm doing everything I think. No, why are you so quiet? And the default position came from things I had heard. Well, it's clearly your fault. If you don't hear from God, it's not that God doesn't want to talk to you, it's you. Well, what part of me is it? Just tell me.
Yeah.
And I started to think about Jesus. Do I know him at all? Or do I just know ideas about him I've been taught? And will he ever talk to me in a way that's outside of the box of how I was raised? And so I started thinking about it. At the time, an amazing thing that only a songwriter could have happen. At the time, I started praying. I found out about a book because it was referred to on the cover of Newsweek. We were living in Malibu at the time, and Mother Teresa, there was a book published of her letters to her father confessors. And they were talking about her faith crisis. I thought, oh, this is interesting. So I went down to the 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica and I bought a copy. And I came home and I started reading. And I didn't realize 49, that's a 4 with a 9 after it. 49 years of her unbelievable mission. She wasn't feeling the Spirit at all. And she wrote letters that she begged the ones she wrote them to, those she confessed to, her priest, father confessors, please destroy this afterwards. But what did I do? That Jesus, I felt the Spirit when I became a nun so profoundly that it moved me until the moment that I started Sisters of Charity in Calcutta. And then it all stopped. And I'm getting the Nobel Prize. And I'm kind of the face of the Catholic Church. I can't tell anybody. I can't tell them about
How lonely.
And I identified, not that I think I'm Mother Teresa. I don't have that. But I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's her exit strategy? And I thought that for me, I've been 2 years, maybe it's all bunk. Maybe I should go on the road and do a tour called Just Kidding, You Are Alone. I mean, what was I going to do? And so I was thinking about this, and I read that book, and I was so moved by her, and understood, and didn't feel so alone, actually, when I felt her pain. And then I had a dream. And I'm not making this up. It was a year after I had been off Broadway with my musical, The Ark. It didn't last very long. And my joke was always, no one who writes for the New York Times listens to the Holy Spirit. But nevertheless. So we got beat up there, and my play didn't work, and I was licking my wounds. And I have this dream, and Mother Teresa, now, for your audience, this is not Moroni showed up at the edge of my bed. It's a dream, okay? It's a dream. But it seemed really real. And it was Mother Teresa. And Mother Teresa comes to me in my dream and nods to me. And I'm sitting at a piano in the theater where we did The Ark in New York. And she nods as if I know how to accompany her, because she's going to sing her life story.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. And I thought, Catholic nun, Mormon songwriter, what a team.
Sure.
So I start playing for her, and there are people out in the audience, and she's singing, and she's a younger Mother Teresa than most of us picture. And I start thinking to myself, why do I know her songs? Why is this familiar to me? Why do I know these songs? And then it gets to the end of the show, what you'd call, in musical theater terms, the 11 o'clock number, you know, the big,
Yes.
to dream the impossible.
Showstopper.
Yeah. And she's going to sing. And then she sings why she didn't quit. Why didn't she just throw in the towel and say it's all crap? And she sings this. I won't sing the melody, but she sings, I choose to pray, and I'm playing for her, I choose to pray for one who doesn't hear me. I choose to wait for love that he conceals. And though God has chosen for now not to be near me, I'm keeping promises my heart no longer feels. I'm keeping promises my heart no longer feels. And I woke up 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I realized this had nothing to do with Mother Teresa, of course. It's about me. And I started to realize that ultimately the choice we have to make is, are we willing to keep promises we made when we felt stuff? Oh, I'm crazy about you, Lynn. I adore you. I adore you. Let's get married. I promise for forever I'll love you. That's when we make the promises. Oh, our baby's born. Oh, I promise that I'll love you till you're a teenager. I mean, whatever. These are the promises we make. So, McLean, are you going to keep them now that you no longer feel them? And so it was this moment of decision. So, alone by myself in that great little place overlooking the ocean in California, I got on my knees, and this was a different kind of prayer. You know, we get taught, here are the steps to prayer, and here are the things you do in prayer. And then, if you know anything about addiction recovery prayers, they're a little different, you know. God, if you're there, higher power or whatever. I was kind of almost at that point. So I kneel down and I say to heaven, okay, I have made covenants with you before, and I feel like I got a little betrayed. And you may not even be there. This may be something that I have to go through. But after that song that Mother Teresa sang to me in my dream, which I wrote down, and then I could play it for you sometime, I'm going to make a new covenant. I'm going to trust you. And this is so, I'm embarrassed to say this, but you need to know. As I'm saying this prayer, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, that's a great prayer. Oh, man. Yeah, that's good. This could be a song. You could make a musical about this prayer. This is really something. And now that you've shown your great faithfulness, 7 more weeks, done. Maybe 6 or 7 more weeks of a little done. Don't we all want that? I got that done.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jesus healed the blind man in an instant.
He's healed. 7 more years. And it got worse. Mm-hmm. And my own tribe, when we moved back to Utah from California to take care of, both sets of our parents were sick. And so we had all 4 of them. My dad had Alzheimer's. My mom had 5 fractures in her back. My mother-in-law had neuropathy addictions to just deal with the pain. My father-in-law had 2 heart attacks. And my nurse angel wife and I are taking care of all these people. And then I go to church and I hear something that someone says, well-meaning, we're all well-meaning, but I'm thinking, are you kidding me? And so I made a comment. The bishop shows up that afternoon. He wasn't there, but heard about the comment. You can't say those things. Well, what did I say? I didn't think it was, awful. I was saying, I think there might be another way I need to look at this to get me through. Because I was hanging on by my fingernails. And I was a burn victim, and what I needed when I came was, you okay, Mike?
Love.
Let me just throw my arms around you. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to explain anything. If you're hurting, you come here. If you're questioning, you say it here. We'll listen. We may not agree with you, or we may say, Mike, there's another way of looking at it. Maybe it's this, or it could be that. I just wanted a community to embrace me and get me over the finish line. And they said, just don't speak. Oh. And we know how to get you to not speak. We'll put you in the genealogy library back in the back of the church. Nobody ever asks a question there. And so my response was, so Bishop, does this mean 3% tithing? Since I'm not talking, I don't have to pay all 10? And so it went on and it went on. And then my dad died and my mom died and Lynn's mom and dad died. And I had just figured out how to manage all of this. And then this extraordinary thing happened. I was in my office, and I've been writing songs for a long time. 35 albums worth of songs, a bunch of musicals. And that's my language. Songs. I learned things about life. I say often that sometimes a song can teach me the truth the only way my heart can hear it. So I'm sitting in my office thinking, gosh, I wish I had a relationship with Jesus that was really mine. I want to have an encounter with him. Yeah. What would that be like? I'd like to talk to people who actually knew him, hung out with him. And it was like, again, this didn't really happen, but this is what it was like. I'm sitting at my piano, my little studio. In walks a guy who says, faith crisis? You wonder what Jesus is like? I knew him. I'm a money changer. He kicked me out of the temple. I got to take on him. Song. Wow. Just for 10 days, uninterrupted except to maybe, go to the loo. It was like a download of songs.
The divine download.
All from people who said, well, I have a different take on it. I was 12, and he brought me back from the dead. Let me tell you my experience. I know. Song.
Wow.
Who's next? Hey, I'm the leper who he healed and said, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody that I healed you. I think I'm going to hell because I tell everybody. I can't stop. Song. And I go through all these characters, and each one of them has a take on his experience, his encounter, his unique experience with Jesus that was only his or hers. And I start seeing Jesus in a way I had never seen him before. I'd never thought of even experiencing him this way before. And then John the Baptist. You think you're having a crisis? I baptized him. And while I'm in prison, I ask a couple of my friends, you track him down and you ask him if he's really the Messiah. Wait, what? I heard about the, go ask him, are you the one who was to come? And I was taught that the only reason John the Baptist would do that is so he could build the faith of those who loved him. And John the Baptist, in my mind, says, duh, I don't know who taught you that. They weren't there. I was there. And then directs me back again to the New Testament. And I'm reading the story in a new way of John the Baptist waiting to be killed, saying, I think I got betrayed. I don't think he's really the one he claimed to be. So the two guys go to see Jesus. They say, John wants to know if you're really the Messiah or if we should look for somebody else. This is the guy who baptized Jesus. God the Father says, this is my beloved Son, and he heard it, and he felt it, and kept his covenants because he was feeling it. And then Jesus doesn't say, oh, he must feel awful. Let me race to the dungeon and comfort him. No. He says, you guys got a couple days? Just hang with me.
Come with me.
And he starts doing miracles. He says, remember these. And after he's done the miracles, he says, when you go see John, tell him, I think he's the greatest man born of woman, but that isn't important. Just tell him what you saw. So they go back to John the Baptist, and John's, tell me, what did he say? What did he say? What did he say? Well, he just said to tell you about this. And they start to tell in order what all of those miracles were. And then John guides me to say, I'm the only guy on the planet that would have recognized another prophet named Isaiah when he was talking to me 700 years ago. There's going to come a time when you're going to wonder who the Messiah is. Here's how you'll know. He'll do this.
Yes.
And they were the same miracles that his friends saw Jesus do. So the song is coming. It stops in the middle and it says, so here's what's the most important thing about that. I realized only someone who knew me at my core would send me an answer that's just for me.
Yes.
I'm the prophet that a revealed prophecy would appeal to. Not only appeal to, but speak to. He sent me the perfect answer for my needs. He sent a prophet, prophecies. Come, and then the rest of the song. So I finished my 10 or 11 songs about Jesus, people who had encounters. And then I had my own. And that was the moment that I'm looking at all of these songs, and I feel a spirit that I had not felt in 9 years. And it says, look at the songs, Michael. The answer to your prayers is in the songs. What am I like? It's in the songs I sent you. And I go through this, and an image of, and a feeling about, and a connection to the Messiah, the Son of the only living God, is there. And then John the Baptist enters and says, don't you think it's interesting, Michael, that Jesus sent me the answer in the way that I would know only he could know me that way. He sent a prophet fulfilled prophecies, and he sent a songwriter. Songs. Yeah. So I start getting very emotional, and I start crying, and the guy who has the default position I told you about of being worthless, thanks, but I can't even let myself think that you could love me the way you love John the Baptist. And then I was born again. And the Spirit, in a way that was, and it's so sacred to me that it's almost hard to talk about, but it said, this is the way I have always felt about you. I love you. Same. It's not like there's a hierarchy of this is who I love, and this is how I love them. This is your well done, thou good and faithful. You kept the promises when you didn't feel them. And so I'm feeling love, and it's changing me. And so Paula sees that the church that I still love has that may be hard for my family. That didn't matter. That's footnotes. He knows me. He knows me like he knew John the Baptist. He sent to me what I needed. I've been given what I need. So I finally say to myself, why did it take so long? What? Why? And that's when I started to think, 7 years ago, well, I didn't think answers to my prayers would come with dreams about Mother Teresa, the Catholic nun. That's not how God works. I made films for the church for forever. I know how he works. I wrote the articles. I taught the classes. I know. And then this humbling moment of, okay, let's list in your mind the things that happened that you couldn't see was my involvement because you were hurting too bad. And you had limited the way that I'm allowed to talk to you. Oh, it comes like this. Comes in this magazine, comes in this talk, comes in this meeting, comes in this way, the way I'd felt it before, and I'd felt it before. And I start going through it, and I start seeing, oh, wait a minute. Oh, so I get to meet, I'm on a board of directors of a progressive Christian organization that's trying to bring about world peace. I'm the token Latter-day Saint on the board. And I'm sitting next to a guy named, the guy who wrote God, a Biography. And he starts talking to me, and I don't think, well, this is the way I'm going to learn the truth. I mean, you weren't set apart. Who ordained you to? He starts saying things about Jesus in the scriptures that are profound. Oh, and here's the guy who's the Catholic priest, gay Catholic priest, who had been out of the church, out of the Catholic Church, who said, you know, those of us who are raised in really strong, passionate church traditions, here's ways that you might want to think about interpreting the scriptures that we could share with your son. No, God's not going to send me a gay Catholic priest to help me learn the eternal truths about how to save my family. That's not on the plan. Don't you understand?
Of course he would.
Of course he would.
Yeah.
And then this, just before this happened, just a few months before all of this that I shared with you with the songs happened, my dad died, and I conducted the funeral. My parents were funny. They said, we don't want you to have our funeral in the church. And these are the most churchy people you'd ever know. Why? And my mom said, before she passed away, well, because they'll be talking about me, there will be cussing, and that'll make them uncomfortable. And also, the songs I got a son who's a songwriter, I want you to sing songs that are not on the approved list. And, and this was my favorite. And then, if you conduct it at a funeral home, there won't be the church leader who has to give the obligatory talk to guilt all the inactive relatives to coming back to church. So I honored their wishes, and I conducted the thing. So I'm going to give the final speech about my dad. And I wasn't prepared for this at all, because I'd made my notes about what I was going to say about my father. And then I just go off script. And I tell this story that some have heard, but I said my dad had Alzheimer's. And at the end, he didn't know who I was. I mean, he was sweet. He would say, "Gosh, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but I think I like you." And I said, "Okay, Dad, I'll take it." Well, as that long process of dementia leading into Alzheimer's was going, he was asked to speak on Easter Sunday. It was a huge honor for him. And it was going to be the final speaker on Easter Sunday. And they didn't know quite how bad my dad was starting to lose it. He hadn't completely lost it, but I was tentative. But this meant the world to him, that I could bear my testimony of my Savior on Easter Sunday, the last 14 minutes of the meeting. And so I'm thinking about it. So I decide I'm going to wait in the overflow area so no one can see me, so I can give signals. So my dad stands up, and the opening line of his concluding talk at Easter is, "Brothers and sisters, in the Pearl of Great Price we learn that God is the greatest intelligence of them all, that God the Father, Elohim, knows more than everybody put together. He is the greatest in the universe. It's his plan. Jesus was going to implement, but he doesn't even say Jesus. And I'm in the back going, Jesus, Dad, get to Jesus. You got 2 minutes. And he wasn't a theatrical guy like me. Very, very measured. But then he says, and I'd forgotten this, isn't it interesting that at the moment in which Heavenly Father's plan depended upon Jesus the most, he abandoned his perfect Son. Now, he says, some have said he was so distraught by seeing his son suffer that he went to a far corner of the universe because he couldn't bear to watch it. He says, I think that's nonsense. He chose to abandon his son, causing his perfect boy to cry out in, pause, agony, my God, why have you forsaken me? Was it something I did wrong? Did I make some mistake that I'm unaware of? Am I unworthy of your presence, which I've always had? Why? And then my dad paused a minute and said, could it be at that moment the greatest intelligence of the universe bore witness to the cosmos that he put all of his faith in his son? That he had faith that even when he wasn't there, his son would choose him. And if God the Father puts all of his faith in Jesus, can't we? And I'm shaking. It's so moving to me. And I thought that was kind of the end of the thing. And then I remembered my dad went to sit down and then came back and looked at me and said, and could it be when you think you've been abandoned and you think you've been forsaken and you think God doesn't want to be with you, that the greatest intelligence in the universe is saying, I have faith in you.
Yes.
That you will choose me. And then he said, and the gift of that is that forever you will know, for you, that you chose him. That you can carry for forever. It wasn't I got manipulated, I got born into the right family, I got put in the right places, I had to say this for the right reasons. You get to know
what Jesus knew. I will choose to keep promises my heart no longer feels. So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
That's a beautiful story.
Thank you.
Michael. We're so grateful that you would be here with us today, that he would come and share this story. If Michael McLean teaches us anything, it's that God has not left us alone. And as we go into the world, and as we show up, and as we be the people that he wants us to be, we are remembered, we are known, and we may have opportunities to choose him alone, but we can do it. Thank you, Michael, for your testimony. Go into the world and be.
Sweet Salt. Save 15% at Seagull Book and SweetSaltClothing.com.